Thank you very much, Chairman Fleming, for holding this important hearing. I want to preface my questions with a statement regarding this issue, because I am proud and honored to represent the Everglades National Park along with Big Cypress National Preserve, both of which are in my congressional district. But the Everglades, of course, goes beyond Everglades National Park. The Everglades is the ecosystem of South Florida, stretching from Shingle Creek south of Orlando to Florida Bay, just on the southern tip of the Florida mainland. It's where we draw our drinking water, where we swim, where we fish, where many of my constituents, of course, call home. The Florida Everglades is one of our nation's greatest natural treasures. The Everglades combination of abundant moisture and rich soils and subtropical temperatures support a vast array of species. However, flood control and reclamation efforts of the past have manipulated the Everglades hydrology, redirecting fresh water destined for the Everglades out to sea. The ecosystem has changed because it now receives less water during the dry season and more during the rainy season. The projects under the comprehensive Everglades Restoration Program will capture fresh water, the lifeblood of the Everglades, destined for the sea and directed back to the ecosystem to revitalize it and protect threatened and endangered plants and wildlife. In order to do this, however, we must also take steps to ensure that water flowing into Lake Okeechobee is as clean and free from pollutants as possible. Therefore, as part of a larger vision for Everglades restoration and clean water flows, I generally support the Everglades Headwaters project. Having said that, I have some concerns about the Headwaters Refuge as proposed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. One is procedural, the other substantive. On the procedural concern, I believe that only Congress may authorize a new refuge, and notwithstanding prior comments, I want to make sure on the substantive front as well to ensure that state agencies such as the South Florida Management District, Water Management District, will have access to the refuge for flood mitigation and pollutant control if necessary. And I know there are several of my other colleagues that have raised similar concerns. However, I believe that many of those concerns stem from past experiences with the Department of the Interior. Promises were made in the past related to access, hunting rights, and other issues, and either misunderstandings or just not kept, promises not kept from one administration to the next, whatever may have been the cause. So in order to alleviate some of these concerns, I would like to request that U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service participate in perhaps the drafting of legislation that can be introduced in Congress, either by myself or another committee member or perhaps one of my Florida colleagues, so we can use it as a base to modify or codify or address the concerns that have been raised by stakeholders. With an authorization process, then, any agreements entered into with hunters, ranchers, airboat operators, and others can be set in stone, so to speak. So I'd like to know if I can count on U.S. Fish and Wildlife to work with me on this effort, Madam Secretary.
Mr. Congressman, thank you for your support and your representation in a district that holds many of our assets. Currently, the refuge is proposed to be established administratively, but of course, if this Congress wishes to propose any specific legislation with respect to this refuge or another specific refuge, because refuges have also been created legislatively, we'd certainly be willing to review that and work with you so that we accomplish the goals of creating this refuge.
Well, I appreciate that very much. And just in the limited time I have left, specifically on the Everglades Headwaters National Wildlife Refuge and Conservation Area, is this being given a prioritization, a higher priority than any of the 68 pending SERP projects?
I'd say it's a different priority. The SERP projects are obviously under the jurisdiction of the Corps in partnership with the South Florida Water Management District, and Starcy can address those. It's also a stated goal of this refuge to complement and where possible to aid the Florida restoration, Everglades restoration effort by increasing substantially water storage, by allowing a more natural hydrology, by creating close to 27,000 wetlands, new acres of wetland. So there are the proposed management of the Headwaters Refuge and Conservation Area is intended to complement and, where possible, aid directly in the restoration of the Everglades overall.
Secretary Darcy.
The establishment of the refuge is not in competition with the existing 64 SERP projects that we have.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.